All right, we're just going to kick off. So welcome, everyone. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the Bidjigal people as the traditional custodians of the land I'm joining on today and pay my very deep respects to Bidjigal elders, past and present. This country has always been a place of teaching, of learning, of knowledge sharing, and that continues today. I honor the enduring legacy and spiritual connection of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people to this land, to the water, to the sky, and to community, and of course extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people joining us on the Zoom today. For those who don't know me, I'm the CEO of the Center for Social Impact. My name is Armine, and for almost 2 decades, the Center for Social Impact has been working alongside charities, alongside social enterprises, philanthropy, government, and business to strengthen the foundations for social change in Australia through our tools, which are research, education, and engagement. As Australia's leader in social impact education, we are so proud to design and deliver this wonderful experience, the Social Impact Leadership Australia program, or what we call SILA for short. It's rated world class. We're really proud of the experience and the work, and it's based on global best practice in executive education. SILA program provides personalized leadership development and capacity building to help for-purpose CEOs like you and your organizations meet growing challenges, demand for services, and address the systemic barriers that prevent communities and people from thriving. I'm very delighted that you've all taken the time to join us today, so thank you so much for doing so. Over the next 45 minutes, you're going to hear from members of the program's delivery team, our visionary funders, as well as past SILA alums. By the end of the session, we hope you'll have a clearer understanding of what SILA offers you as a program, how it works, the impact it's having, and ultimately how SILA is equipping for-purpose CEOs to drive meaningful change across their organizations and the systems in which they operate. Now, there's been a slight change to our lineup with Professor Christy Muir unfortunately having to bow out. She is our SILA program leader, but she's had a very unexpected sad death in the family, so she sends her apologies, but she's at a funeral today and couldn't make it. And stepping in for Christy is the wonderful head coach of the SILA program, Terry Solar. So thank you, Terry, for stepping in, and we'll look forward to hearing more from Terry shortly. So in 2026, after transforming the leadership journeys of, I can't believe it already, 120 CEOs nationwide in their organizations, SILA's returning to Victoria and Tasmania for a second time. And I'm very excited to share that applications are now open. Full details on how to apply, including eligibility criteria, are mapped out on the SILA website. It's pretty straightforward. I would really encourage you to take a look there. There's also an overview of the selection process for the 24 philanthropically funded places in the 10-month program. I'm sure you're going to have a bunch of questions that come up as we go through the presentation, so please share them or share your thoughts in the chat as we go. There's a dedicated 15 minutes of Q&A at the end of this webinar, and if we don't get to all of your questions, we'll be sending some follow-up resources and comments and do our best to provide answers to any questions that are outstanding. So established in 2021, SILA has now been going for some time. We're very excited, and it's going to go for another 5 years, and it's proudly funded by the Meyer Foundation, the Sydney Meyer Fund, the Vincent Fairfax Family Foundation, the Paul Ramsay Foundation, and the Snow Foundation, and they all share in SILA's vision to unlock the potential of Australia's for-purpose CEOs. After 5 incredibly successful years, the funders recently agreed to reinvest in the SILA program, recognizing that strong leadership is absolutely fundamental to addressing Australia's most pressing social and environmental challenges. This means a further 120 CEOs around the country and a further 120 step-up leaders, and hundreds of board directors from every corner of the country will benefit from this program moving forward through to 10 years. Now, at CSI, we extend our very genuine and sincere thanks to the funders. It genuinely would not be possible without them. And I think the fact that this level of investment is being made in the for-purpose sector is pretty unprecedented. So very grateful to the funders, and we'll hear from our funders on the call today. And I'd like to then take the opportunity now to introduce you to one of them, Mr. Leonard Verry. Leonard is the CEO of the Meyer Foundation and Sydney Meyer Fund. He's co-chair of Equality Australia and a fellow of the Australian Institute of Company Directors. Leonard was also appointed a member of the Order of Australia for significant service to the philanthropic sector, LGBTIQA+ communities, and to the arts. So Leonard, I'm very curious about why you decided to fund for a further 5 years, to commit to an additional 5 years of funding for SILA.
Fantastic. Hi, everyone. I feel like Liz and I are joining you from the newsroom. Doesn't that feel to it? So we'll throw to each other as we go. Thanks for the warm welcome, Amine. So why did we commit for a further 5-year term? To answer that question, I need to go back to why we committed in the first place. And back in 2017, when we were working on a new 5-year strategy, we undertook a literature review that told us that the for-purpose sector leadership was chronically and materially underfunded, particularly relative to our commercial peers. So we went off on a study tour to the United States with the view that we were going to fund a number of positions each year at the Stanford or Harvard not-for-profit courses. But we then met with a bunch of foundations and a bunch of organisations delivering management and leadership training, and completely changed our minds. We worked with the Centre for Social Impact for a number of years, developing this program, and SILA is the result. That's why we did that 5 years ago. Why are we doing it again? Well, the need persists. There continues to be a considerable disparity between investment in the for-purpose and for-profit sector. Our renewed investment evidences our intention to continue to support the sector, and an increased awareness of the need to support well-being of our senior leaders. We're also very interested in this notion of culture of permission. When I say that, I mean that in a significant majority of for-purpose organisations, we see a strong bias towards deploying every dollar gained into program delivery. And we are, I think, trying as part of SILA to stress the criticality of developing our leaders and supporting their wellbeing. The program is doing what we hoped, and more. I'll give you some stats. So we, as part of the development of SILA, we engaged Nous Group to undertake an evaluation iteratively every year, then as an overall review at the end of the first 5 years. And we know that 96% of surveyed participants agree or strongly agree that they could make a difference across the sector by using what they had learned through SILA, obviously. 100% of the three cohorts surveyed say they'd made a difference in their organisation due to SILA. And super impressively, the Net Promoter Scores have grown from 89.5 to 96, a better than world-class result. Some examples of what the participants say across 3 domains in terms of individual impacts, and I'm quoting, "I'm a lot more confident in the gifts that I bring into the CEO position now that I'm coming with a lot more resolve and authority. The program really helped me grow in my confidence as a leader." The second domain, impacts for organisations, quoting again, "It's been transformational for the maturity of the organisation." And another, "The sabbatical allowed the team to work differently together and gave people the opportunity to shine." And another, "The board recognised how much risk we were holding if I were to leave. Now they've supported leadership development." The third domain, participants ability to work at systems level and collaboratively, and I quote, "I can make better use of the political capital I've built to shape policy, drive change, and contribute to shaping conversations about key issues." Another reason we are so committed to a further 5-year term for SILA is the quality of our delivery partner. The Centre for Social Impact is best in class, and the program is led by Professor Christy Muir and Robbie McPherson. We couldn't have hoped for better, to be unequivocal about it. So along with our co-funders, with whom I have to say we have an outstanding relationship, the Vincent Fairfax Family Foundation, the Snow Foundation and the Paul Ramsay Foundation, we are very, very proud to be supporting SILA. We know that sustained impact requires sustained commitment. So my task now is to, you'll kick me if I go from is to introduce Liz, who's sitting on my right. Liz Yeo is the Chief of Alliances at the Paul Ramsay Foundation. Liz brings over 35 years experience working in the community sector, which means you started at 15, in both large and small not-for-profit organisations. Liz was previously the CEO at Newtown Neighbourhood Centre. So Liz, the question for you is, how do you think SILA is helping address some of the challenges facing the for-purpose sector?
Thanks, Leonard. And again, coming from PRF, it is a pleasure and a privilege to be able to be supporting this program. In terms of the challenges, they're not going to be any surprise to anyone on this call, but there's just a couple that I wanted to call out that I think SILA really helps us to address. One is, as we know in the sector, there's often really limited opportunities for reflection and for development. And I think SILA provides an amazing opportunity and space for that to happen for CEOs who I know, and I know from experience, are often consumed pretty much 24/7 by their roles. So great opportunity to develop and reflect. The second one, also no surprises, the sector we know is always strapped for resources, and particularly resources that are going to support people's development and learning. So we want to build a cohort of sector leaders that are not competing with each other, but that are working out how they can work together, collaborate to address the biggest challenges that I know you're all facing in your respective roles. So as a member of the team at PRF and of this collaboration, and as a former not-for-profit CEO, I would say, and as someone who's participated in a program not unlike SILA, I would say absolutely go for it. It will change your life. It will change your professional and personal future, I would suggest. So, and it will change outcomes for the people and places, communities that you're working with. So really encourage you to take up this opportunity if it sounds right for you.
Thank you so much, Leonard and Liz. And, I know you've both been integral to the program across the years that we've been running it. So good to hear in particular about that rare space for and culture of permission that we're creating through the program to learn with your peers, that you can lean on for years to come, and to be able to do so without the usual financial pressures, thanks to the fact that this is all philanthropically funded. I was just recently talking to a SILA alum from cohort 1, and they're still self-organizing their own kind of offsite retreats. Like they're so I think it's interesting to see how people are still leaning on each other, still reflecting on challenges, and that's 5 years on. So really great to see that. And obviously we're going to hear from 2 of our alums in just a little bit. But before we get to that, I wanted to introduce you to Terry. So Terry's actually our head coach on the SILA program. She's leading the coaching program for CEOs and step-up leaders and integrating all of the program components, and has been since the inception of the program. Beyond SILA, Terry brings about 30 years plus of experience working with senior leaders and executives across sectors in Australia and internationally as well. So welcome, Terry. Terry, you've now supported 120 for-purpose CEOs through the program. Can you please tell us about the purpose of the program and the impact it's had so far?
Oh, 120 at time just goes, and so many lessons learned along the way. But if I just start with, as a member of the faculty, to really thank the funders, to thank CSI for investing in this, because it's a really, really big investment. But most importantly, to thank all of the not-for-profit leaders that are sitting out there looking at their continual development, because it's you that actually makes a difference in the social sector. So if I come back to purpose, really we're all looking at, if I look around the room, I would imagine and assume that we're all looking at trying to make a difference, to have social impact in some way or the other. One of the things that often gets left behind is the sustainability of that impact, and that sustainability both for the individual, for the organization, and for the entire ecosystem. So when we looked at developing the program, many programs take one of those circles in the Venn diagram and spend a lot of time going down a particular pathway. We recognize that there are three elements and very, very interconnected parts of the program that needs to be addressed as we go through the work of SILA. The first one is this building of self-leadership. We never ever arrive in our leadership roles as CEOs without a little bit of baggage, without kind of having this sense of what are we bringing in. And what SILA offers up is the space to reflect, to take a look at some of those things, to understand it more deeply, to really challenge some of the values that you're holding and the ways that you're holding it, and build up some resilience around that. That's not to say you are not resilient, but we don't give ourselves the time and space to actually really step back and understand that a little bit more. So the challenge for many coming onto SILA is this time and space for reflection and what that actually means, because it starts to bring up a range of different feelings and thoughts. The other one is our role never ever exists in isolation. This is not a personal development program, although there is a lot of personal and professional transformation. This is done on behalf of the organizations that you're representing. So this kind of sense of building up that tools, the connections, the support that is required for yourself, but equally your step-up leaders and the team that allow us to support the organization to do its best work and to have social impact. So there is a strong focus on that. And importantly, we never again exist as an isolated entity. We exist in a broader ecosystem. And to echo Liz's words, there is something about let's collaborate. What does it mean to work on some of these issues collectively rather than looking at it sort of through one particular lens? So this idea around building up a network of not-for-profit leaders, peer support, knowing others, being able to collaborate across some of those boundaries is incredibly important. So it's really broad in terms of where we're going and the goals. And if I can talk through some of the elements, because one of the things in terms of design is that we really started to think about what are some of those parts that contribute to both the development of individuals, but development of systems and ecosystems. So you'll see from this slide, and it looks like they all standalone pieces of work. One of the things about SILA and the joy of my job is that these are all connected and integrated. You cannot pick and choose on a SILA program. We have done this purposefully to wrap around leadership capacity, to build both your capacity, but equally so to keep an eye on your organization and on those step-up leaders that will be stepping into your roles when you're on sabbatical. So these are all connected and all equally important, couldn't pull out. But if we look at the kind of personal growth and insight piece, there's one-on-one coaching. Some of you might have had coaching, some of you might not have, but really developing that space for you to look at oneself, and all of these tailored to CEOs, specific challenges, and done by an incredible coaching panel. There is the immersions, and these are the training, the kind of workshops that sit in that space, which are 1 week long, and that's kind of taking into consideration the travel required. And this is sitting with your cohort of CEOs, a deep dive into facilitated learning, providing you with space to reflect, but also providing a range of frameworks that are supporting around that. We've also got assessments or leadership assessments that feed into the coaching and the work that you do to highlight some of our own development requirements, blind spots, working with the coach through those so that we've got that wraparound support. And learning circles for CEOs. Some of the best learning happens around the peers support and the shared challenges. So being able to sit with others across this cohort, share in quite a vulnerable way, share our own challenges, our own kind of areas of requirements and needs, but also get the support that we often don't get when we are busy doing our everyday work. The other piece that we have, which is the one that will probably be either the most challenging or exciting, is the sabbatical. So this is a 3-month protected time for the CEOs to step back. And I'm just thinking about the work that Leonard was talking to around the research, being able to step away and really start to almost rejuvenate, rethink, reimagine what that looks like. It's not easy, but it is probably the most transformative part of it. Of course, in doing that, we have to support the step-up leaders. So there is someone who will step into your role as you go on sabbatical, but we have an amazing wraparound for the step-up leaders, which includes webinars and includes an investment in their own development as well. So holding that. The other piece, which I guess is really important, is the capacity building. And that capacity building where there is over $38,000 of untied funding is given to each of the SILA participants. And that is not for the kind of go away and look, have the massage and retreat, but really how do you best support your organization and the work that you're doing. So it can be used in various ways: professional development courses, executive team coaching, strategic development, any additional duties that get paid to the step-up leader. That is really a choice for the organization as to its best use. And then, of course, there's 120 other people who've gone through the program. So that alumni engagement is incredible, and a network and a cohort. And this year, for the first time, we're having a cross-cohort gathering, which brings together those people. So really holding this as an important learning. So those are some of it. I'm not going to necessarily talk to some of the impacts because Leonard, you covered it off. But if we just look at that slide, it's incredible in terms of the percentages around people's experience of the program. So I'm not sure if we can get much better than that. And as you said, Leonard, it's better than world class in terms of that net promoter score. So SILA's impact is amazing. So that's the kind of framing up of the program. But I guess it's easy to hear from a faculty member. There is a very different experience if you're sitting in the group, and that's why we've invited 2 of the alumni to join us today so that they can talk to this. So we're joined today by cohort 4, Annie Riley and Jeff Smith. Annie is the CEO of Carpentaria, based in Darwin. She's a champion of reforming Australian disability services. And after getting to know Annie through SILA, what really stands out is her deep commitment to achieving positive outcomes for people with disability in the communities they're part of, including in remote contexts. I love the photo. Jeff is the co-founder and CEO of the Australian Spatial Analytics. He's a social entrepreneur and a data analyst who recognized the untapped potential of neurodivergent people in Australia's workforce and built a fast-growing social enterprise in response. Both of them having just come off of SILA. So if I can throw to the 2 of you, and maybe if I ask you first, Annie, is why did you apply to SILA?
It's such a big question, and I've really enjoyed actually revisiting my experience while I was just, prepping and thinking about how I was going to answer these questions. And I hope that I can do justice in my messaging, that because it's a really hard thing to fully articulate. It's such an amazing experience. So at the time that I saw the SILA as an opportunity to apply, I'd found myself in a really challenging situation, like leading in a really complex sector. There was a lot going on. I was really struggling at that point in time. And I found that when I looked around for support, there probably wasn't a lot there. So, when I saw the SILA, it felt like a hand reaching out to help. And I think what I really liked about it, that it, wasn't like an MBA or anything like that, something very academic. It just seemed like a very different approach that would help me strengthen and think a lot more deeply about my leadership, and also about my why. Because I think that was, when you're struggling in a really complex environment, you getting back to your why is so important. And SILA looked like something that was going to help me with that. And I can't say that at the time that I applied that I fully understood what it was all about, but I liked that it was for not-for-profit. And I really liked that, we'd be with my peers in the sector in the not-for-profit arena. So, yes, well, I put my hand up and put the application in.
And you're here now, which is fantastic. Jeff, did you want to add anything to that? Or I'm curious around, what have you noticed in terms of the impact that SILA has had on you and your organization?
Okay. Hello, Terry. Hello, everybody. I feel like did I write that introduction about me in my application? Sounds a bit lofty. But as far as the impact that SILA's had on me, it's obviously been net positive. Otherwise, I wouldn't have said yes to this webinar. But I found there was a lot of introspection that was required, and obviously reflection. And there's an amazing support network in SILA, not only in the retreats and in the sabbatical, but throughout all parts of the program. And it kind of firstly reinforces that you're a good person who belongs in the for-purpose sector, which is something that I assume we all struggle with, but I certainly did. And so for myself, I thought, I remember so many key moments of the program, and one of them was when Robbie McPherson said on the first day, "This is not counselling, but it's not counselling," and it kind of is that for yourself. There's a lot of introspection, a lot of deep thought about how you yourself can be not only a great leader for your cause, but just for your family and for your peers around you, because that kindness and respect is easy to lose in stressful situations. So that was wonderful. But also the organisation, there's so many tools and frameworks in there, and he's right that it's not like an MBA. It's very immersive, and so they're easy to pick up and use as kind of a decision-making engine for the organisation. So our organisation kind of came from turning from a hand-wringing kind of decision-making organisation into proactive and having honest conversations. So that was great. And then systems-wise, well, I mean, it may be for some of the applicants the first time they've really thought about systems change. Certainly was for me. Other than writing theories of change and things like that, it's about living and breathing it. And we've become so much well versed at how we're challenging the status quo in autism employment, and I've got to thank all the systems training for that. I can keep talking, but
no, that's great. So what I'm going to do is, because of the time, is I'm going to throw to Amine, but there may be some questions that come through the Q&A that will be directed specifically to the alumni. So thank you both. And Amine, can I hand over back to you to see what questions we might still have?
Absolutely. Thank you so much to both Jeff and Annie, and of course to you, Terry. There's often questions about sabbatical and how the sabbatical works. So Terry, can you just share a bit more about how the sabbatical works in practice, and whether it's a mandatory component, which I know is something that a lot of people have questions about?
Yeah. as I said when I was talking about it, it's one of the most challenging aspects of the program, because I don't think as CEOs you've ever thought about the fact that you could actually take a break. What happens to your organization if you're not there? What happens to you if you're not there? It is integral to the program. We often see the most change happening during this period of time, not just for you, as in you having the space, but equally so for your organization, your step-up leaders, your executive leadership team, if you've got one, and the cascading into the organization. As far as what you do on a sabbatical, that emerges and that becomes something that you make choice of. And certainly there is enough scaffolding from a coaching perspective to bring you up to speed around moving you towards the sabbatical. However, it's non-negotiable. And what we would really like you to think about is, in your absence, who might be able to step into the role. Yeah. The other thing just before is we often kind of self-select out because we go, oh no, our board won't accept that. That's not something that they will kind of go for. Can I encourage you to have the conversation before you make that assumption? Because the value of the program is way beyond the individual. So that's one of them.
Thank you, Terry. There's a couple of questions in the chat about step-up leaders, and I think you're quite well placed to answer that as well. And then we might also throw afterward to Jeff and Annie to talk about their sabbatical perspectives and how they convince their boards, because that seems to be another one that is emerging. But with regard to the step-up leaders, Terry, there's two questions here. One is, are you able to nominate 2 step-up leaders per organization? Take that one first.
Yeah, okay. So first kind of the ways that we'd like to do it is that there was one person who held that role. We understand in different organizations that there are different ways of managing. Some organizations have had co-CEOs. That would need to be negotiated. If you're trying to nominate 2 step-up leaders, I'd kind of throw it back to you and say, what are you avoiding in terms of putting one person in that role? The other thing is we can only offer up the coaching to one individual. So in terms of that, there's also, the coaching would be done for an individual. There are always kind of different ways around it, so they're worth talking through. The other one around the other question around nominating a step-up leader and raising expectations. There's a lot of wraparound in terms of the step-up leader program. So we try and kind of parallel it, but not with the intensity with the CEO program. So we have webinars, we have a cohort that we establish, we have learning circles for the step-up leader, and certainly we have coaching, which enables them to really think through some of the expectations, what it means to step into that role. Yeah, it can be tricky, but it's all part of how you manage those dynamics and the kinds of conversations we can support with. So I don't know if that's answering, but it's providing. Step-up leaders are probably key critical to your to the learning on the program as well.
Thanks, and perhaps it might be worth throwing to Jeff or Annie, whoever's comfortable with that one, on the step-up leaders as well, because I think the perspective of coming back as a CEO to a step-up leader who's been acting and how you felt that was managed, it might be interesting to hear your perspectives. Annie, if you want to take that one, throw to you.
Yeah, I'm happy to answer that one. I think there's a few things with that. My advice would be to let SILA do a lot of really good work to prepare you for the sabbatical. So, really getting your head across the fact that the sabbatical is for you. It's not for you to go off and do some massive project or anything like that. It's for you to process the learnings of SILA. And I got so much out of it. It was, transformational. But with the step-up leader, if you trust the process that SILA puts in place, it is such an amazing way to prepare. We worked through the documents and the templates that were there, and really ended up with a very clear step-up leader's job description, basically, and really clear about what they can do, what areas that we, as a CEO, you don't want them to go to. So by the time I went on sabbatical, I felt really, really comfortable with what was happening. It is hard to step away, and it's also hard to sort of stop thinking about work as well, particularly if you stay in town where your organisation can be difficult because you run into people in coffee shops and whatnot. So I found, like, and if you want me to keep going, I can talk. Like, when I came back, the outcome of that of the step up leader, and then the people in the below that level, everyone benefited. And I'm still seeing, like, 12 months later, I can still see that this process is taking place. People were able to take on a lot more while I was away, and then they wanted to stay in those places. The hardest bit was for me to take my new position. So so trust the process is probably my one piece of advice.
Yep.
Thank you, Annie. And Jeff, anything to add to that one? If not, I have an additional sabbatical related question for you.
Oh, go on. Let's get another one.
That's good. So this one's about boards. The question is, this sabbatical continues to be a block from my board's perspective. COVID funding cuts, restructures, relocation means we've had a risk and crisis response, which makes them very tentative. So I think that kind of question of how do you approach this with your board? How did you have those conversations? Any advice for the person who's asked that question?
Oh, not a board question. No. I would reframe. In fact, I did in some aspects when I was approaching the board. If you're worried about a 3-month period, you're probably not looking far enough ahead as a board director. Part of governance and part of board directorship, particularly in nonprofits, is the kind of succession planning. And this is a gift. You're being paid a grant to succession plan. You're being paid a grant to develop your leaders. So it's a bit of a reframe that board, if they're doing what they should be doing, which is looking long term, and certainly supporting succession planning within the organisations that it isn't a key person risk, then it's a no-brainer. If it costs a lot of money for the organisation, I totally get it, but certainly, I'm not saying put the hard word on them in that way. Don't blame them, but if it could potentially be reframed in a more subtle way that this is a forced kind of long-term look ahead, if it were to be taken up. And we are a stronger, more resilient organisation, and I'm sure there would be, of those 120, the majority of those would say SILA has benefited the organisation, not the 3-month period that was tough.
Great, that's really helpful. Anything you'd add to that, Annie, in terms of your experience?
No, that's a really good outline, Jeff. I think also SILA provides the evidence, so you can actually, when you're putting your case forward to the board, there is really strong evidence that shows why a sabbatical is a good thing to do. So, I would add that in.
There was also board development. I'm not sure if I'm speaking out of school here, but one of our board directors did a course that was also part of this SILA program with CSI. So there's also an opportunity for board directors to take part.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm just throwing a spanner in the works.
No, not at all. No, that's exactly right, Jeff. And it is, it's a course called Governance for Social Impact. And as part of the SILA program, your board would benefit and be able to access that program thanks to our funding partners. So it is something that in the whole organizational uplift, the boards are a critical piece, as all NFPCOs know, and that's something we certainly address. And I would also back in Annie's comments about the evidence base of sabbaticals, because I think it does feel very odd when you're not accustomed to the concept, but would encourage you, we have the original report that underpins why we created SILA on our website as well, would encourage you to share that data with your board members as part of the conversation as you go. So there is a question here, which Terry, we've sort of answered in terms of quantum, but I might just throw to you to speak a little bit more about organizational maturity. So the question is the size of the not-for-profit organization important and the organization's maturity? Can small not-for-profits still apply? Now, we've answered the question in terms of eligibility in terms of revenue size, but you might give a bit of color and movement to what the structure needs to look like for this to be successful.
Yeah. So it's one of those places where size doesn't really matter. What really matters is this sense of have we got enough in place for the organization to be able to learn from it, not survive, not just kind of get through this as a sure, we've got through this, but truly to kind of survive and thrive and learn from the opportunities. So things like having in place is certainly there needs to be a step-up leader that can step into that role and not have to carry the complete burden of still having their substantive role. Now, those sometimes doesn't happen. We sometimes have step-up leaders who are still in the substantive role. But for the most part, we would like them to have an experience that allows them to be outside of their competence zone. So I think that's important. The other one is the relationship with the board, because you do want to have that board backing to enable this to happen. And that should start now as you go through the application process. So we've had various sizes in terms of the organization. It's much more around how it's structured, and we often find ways of being able to support SILA participants to find the way to be able to go through the program well.
Thanks, Terry. Another question for this one for Leonard and Liz, and this is more as you have participated on the selection committee, you know what you're looking for. I think there's a sort of sense that you have to be a polished superstar who's, won every medal that there is to win in order to be eligible for something like this or to even get a look in. So I thought I might just throw to you guys to give us a bit of a sense of whether that's true or what you're really looking for.
Hi, thanks for the question. I think it's obvious that the answer to your question is no, you don't need to be that high. Quite to the contrary. I mean, I think we're all works in progress. And this isn't about the highest end polishing of a magnificent product. This is about taking real people and giving them the opportunity to develop as individuals, as leaders of their organisations, and as participants in an important broader sector. So if you were to ask me what are the attributes of likely successful candidates, well, subject to the eligibility requirements, and I see there's a bit of chat about that, I would say curious, open-minded, and I'd be surprised if you weren't apprehensive. So if I would say if someone's online thinking, that sounds very scary, think about it long and hard, because our data tells us that this program works, and I've sat on just about all of the application processes, the interview processes, and we get a broad variety of diverse and wonderful people applying. So my counsel, apply.
Thank you so much. Look, I think that's all we have time for today. A huge thank you to our funders, to Leonard and Liz, to our faculty member, Terry, and of course to our alums, Annie and Jeff, for taking time to speak with us today. If we didn't get to your question, we'll be sending some follow-up resources and do our best to provide answers. A reminder, applications are open today and they close on 9 April. I would encourage you all to subscribe to the SILA newsletter, because it will send you, importantly, application close date reminders, as well as other resources which will help with your application process. Thank you all for investing your time to learn more about the program today, and we really look forward to reading your applications in due course. Thanks all.